Okay, this is the answers for the free response questions for the Unit 3 exam. For the practice free response question that I uploaded into Google Classroom, I hope this helps you. I hope you can also appreciate my rudimentary cell phone stand, which is my air filter right here. So this is definitely low tech. If you want to support future low tech AP macro free response questions answers, don't comment, and do not subscribe to my YouTube channel. Okay, so I'll just go through and answer the questions and read off the question parts and then answer them right here. Hopefully you can have this pulled up as I'm answering so you can kind of see how I'm responding to these different questions, okay? So part one, assume the United States economy is currently operating at equilibrium above the full employment rate. So what you're thinking there is you're trying to say, okay, what is the full employment rate? What's a percentage above that number? What does that mean? Okay, so if let's say the natural rate of unemployment is the same as the United States, somewhere between 4 and 6%, and a rate above that number would be like 8 or 9%, that would tell us that we are in a recession. Okay, so that kind of helps us out there. And so I'm going to make that box over here that we are in a recession. So that way, as I am responding, I can refer back to that, and that'll help me keep everything organized in my mind. Okay. Part A, draw a correctly labeled graph of the aggregate demand and aggregate supply graph. Of aggregate demand and aggregate supply. Show each of the following: long-run aggregate supply and the current equilibrium output and price level. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and label this as part A, and we're going to draw the aggregate demand, aggregate supply graph here. Price level, real GDP. We have our short-run aggregate supply curve, our aggregate demand curve. And again, because we are in a period of a recession, our current real GDP level in the short run is going to be less than our potential output. All right, so that's why the short-run equilibrium point is going to be to the left of the long-run aggregate supply curve. And we would, of course, label the price level there as well. So this is the current equilibrium output and price level. Okay, you don't have to underline those. That's just there to help you to see that for this point here. Part B, now assume the government wants to correct the economy. They want to bring the economy back into long-run equilibrium. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and put C graph here. Just again, you're trying to make this as easy as possible for the graders to give you a good grade. All right. Part B, now assume the government wants to correct the economy. Which type of fiscal policy would the government pursue, meaning expansionary or contractionary? Well, if we're in a recession, the government would and should pursue expansionary. All right, sorry if you can't read cursive. All right, but that says expansionary fiscal policy. If you can't read cursive. If you can, don't rate me too hard on my cursive, all right? Now, list 2 specific fiscal policy actions that the government would take. Well, we know that there are 3, okay? One has to do with changing spending, government spending. One has to do with changing taxes, and the other could be changing transfers. So you could say any of the following. They could increase, if they're doing expansionary fiscal policy, they could increase government spending. They could lower the tax, we'll just say lower taxes, and they could increase transfers. All right. Any of those 3 would have, 2 out of those 3 would have worked as a response here. You're just listing it out, so that's it. All right, part C, given your answer in part B, explain what will happen to the unemployment in the United States in the short run. So we would say the unemployment rate would decrease in the short run. All right, because the government, if they're increasing spending, that money goes into the economy. That is going to boost GDP in the short run, increasing aggregate demand and everything else. That's going to lower the unemployment rate. More people are going to get jobs and everything else. All right, and we would say because higher spending, whether it's by the government or by consumers with lower taxes or increased transfers, would increase real GDP. All right, any of those would work there, okay, in the short run. Part D, draw the effect of the fiscal policy action taken by the government on your graph in part A. So I just mentioned that they would show aggregate demand shifting to the right. Because it doesn't say how much, as long as it's shifting to the right, you're gonna be fine. So you could have it shifting like way over here, or it's beyond the potential output. You could have it shifting a little bit to where it doesn't quite close the recessionary gap. But as long as you're showing a shift to the right, because I like everything to kind of match up here, we'll go ahead and close the recessionary gap. All right, but we have a new aggregate demand curve shifting to the right. Okay, thus a new short run equilibrium point. So that's the potential output and also the second level of real GDP. And we have a new price level there. So D, we're gonna go ahead and write C graph in part A. Okay. So hopefully that kind of helps you there. Moving on to number 2. All right, this should be pretty quick. Hopefully I can finish this all on the same page. Assume the United States economy experiences a recession. Further, assume that Americans have a marginal propensity to save of 0.25. The president asked Congress to propose either a spending increase or a tax decrease, so one or the other, to offset the effects of the recession. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and write this out. We know that the marginal, again, these are just extra notes here, okay? Not to be, actually let me draw a line here so we can kind of keep this organized. So we know that marginal propensity to save equals 0.25. So that means that the marginal propensity to consume must equal 0.75 because both of these together equals 1. Okay, so hopefully that can kind of help you out there. And then we know that our spending multiplier, all right, or expenditure multiplier equals, all right, 1 over the MPS, so that would be 0.25, which equals 4. And we know that the tax transfer multiplier is equal to 0.75 over 0.25, so that's 3. Okay, so these numbers here are going to be very helpful for us when we're answering A, B, C, and D. All right, so kind of writing those out, sketching those out might help you. It also will help you to kind of just put it all onto the paper so you don't forget it. I like to just write everything out so I don't forget it as soon as I can, okay? Assuming the United States, let's see, further, okay, so we have all that. A, calculate the total impact of a $50 billion increase in government spending. Okay, so we have the 50 billion, remember we're gonna show our work, times the multiplier, which in this case, because it's government spending, would be the spending multiplier, times 4 equals, we just multiply that out, a $200 billion, I'm gonna draw an arrow to keep it since I'm running on a straight here, increase in GDP. That's the total impact here, $200 billion. All right. Part C, calculate the total impact of a $50 billion decrease in personal income taxes. All right, now we use the tax transfer multiplier here, 3 times 50 billion, that is a $150 billion increase in GDP. Now they both increase GDP, but for part C, Will the tax decrease have a greater, less, or the same effect on GDP than the spending increase? That could probably be reworded. I'll look into that for the future. But we just simply look at the numbers here. Is 150 billion less than, greater than, or equal to 200 billion? First grade mathematicians over here could tell us that 150 is less than 200. All right, so we would say the tax decrease would have less of an impact than spending. All right, and the reason for that, you would explain briefly, is you could say something like the multiplier is less, there would be an initial round of savings from the tax transfer multiplier. Any of those things would count as giving you the correct explanation there for that point. And then part D, assume the economy gets back on track and the marginal propensity to consume is the same. So none of this data changes. After a couple of years, the economy has an inflationary gap of $90 billion and Congress wants to raise taxes. All right, I guess they all want to get voted out of office. How much would the government need to raise taxes to close the gap? So now we just do a little bit of reverse math here. All right, so we know the total we want to change is 90 billion. We know the tax transfer multiplier is 3. Now we just need to find x. So we simply divide by 3, and we would say that Congress, all right, would raise taxes by $30 billion for D. I'm gonna circle that because I kind of ran out of space there. Okay, so hopefully that helps. If you have any questions, need anything, please let me know. But if not, we will, good luck on the test and you guys will do great. All right, don't forget, do not like this video, do not subscribe, do not leave a comment. Low technology here. I'm gonna highlight the top part here too again, just in case you need to go back over that. So you can pause that and take a look at that.